The men's protection weren't mine. I found them buried beneath Riley's yoga mats in the hall closet, still in their torn wrapper. 3 missing from a 12-pack. The brand was expensive, the kind she'd complained about me never buying because they felt better. Standing there in my work clothes, metal shavings still clinging to my jeans, I held that crumpled foil package like evidence of my own stupidity. 39 years old, and I'd been playing the faithful husband while my wife collected designer prophylactics. The house felt different now. Every sound seemed amplified. The refrigerator's hum, the neighbor's dog barking, the distant rumble of freight trains that had lulled me to sleep for 15 years. I'd built this life with my hands, literally. Installed every light fixture, painted every wall, fixed every leak. Riley used to joke that I was better with tools than with words. She wasn't joking anymore. I tucked the condoms into my jacket pocket and walked to the kitchen. Riley stood at the counter, her back to me, scrolling through her phone. Her auburn hair caught the late afternoon light streaming through the window I'd replaced last spring. She wore those expensive leggings that made her legs look longer, the ones she'd started wearing to work at the yoga studio. "How was your day?" I asked, testing the words. "Fine." She didn't look up from her phone. "Martha's covering the evening classes this week. Some family thing." Martha, the woman who'd been Riley's partner in opening the studio 3 years ago. The woman who'd supposedly been helping Riley find herself through meditation and juice cleanses. The woman who'd never once looked me in the eye during the few times we'd met. "That's nice of her," I said, watching Riley's thumbs dance across the screen. "What are you doing?" "Just Instagram." She finally glanced at me, and I saw something flicker across her face. Annoyance, maybe, or guilt. "You're home early." "Foreman sent us home. Machine broke down." I opened the refrigerator more for something to do than because I was hungry. "Want me to start dinner?" "I already ate." She set her phone face down on the counter. "Salad at the studio." Another lie. I'd driven past the studio on my way home from work, a detour I'd been taking more often lately, though I hadn't admitted it to myself until now. The lights were off, parking lot empty except for a few cars belonging to the businesses next door. "I might go out tonight," Riley said, her voice artificially casual. "Maya invited me to that new bar downtown, the one with the rooftop." Maya, Riley's sister-in-law, married to Riley's brother. A woman who'd never particularly liked me, who'd made subtle comments about Riley settling when we'd gotten married. Maya, who'd been divorced twice and seemed to view marriage as a temporary arrangement. "Sounds fun," I said, closing the refrigerator. "Which bar?" "I don't remember the name. It's on 3rd Street, I think." She was looking at her phone again, but the screen was black. "You don't mind, do you?" "Why would I mind?" She shrugged. "You've been working so much lately. I thought maybe you'd want to spend time together." The casual cruelty of it hit me like a slap. Riley knew I'd been working overtime to save for the vacation she'd been wanting. 2 weeks in Costa Rica, something about reconnecting with nature. I'd been picking up extra shifts at the scrapyard, coming home exhausted and covered in rust stains, while she'd been doing whatever it was she'd been doing. "I'll probably just watch the game," I said. "Okay." She picked up her phone and headed toward the bedroom. "I'm going to shower." I listened to her footsteps on the stairs, waited for the bathroom door to close, then pulled out my own phone. It took me less than 30 seconds to confirm what I already knew. There was no new bar on 3rd Street. The only rooftop bar in town was on 5th Street, and it had been there for 2 years. The shower started running. I walked to the living room window and looked out at the street where I'd lived for 15 years. The Hendersons' house across the street needed new shutters. The Kowalskis' fence was leaning after the last storm. Normal problems. Fixable problems. I pulled out the condoms and stared at them again. Extra large. Jesse's size, not mine. My cousin Jesse. The one who'd always been taller, smoother, more confident. The one who'd parlayed a community college business degree into a series of increasingly successful ventures. First a food truck, then a catering company, now some kind of social media consulting business that I'd never fully understood. Jesse, who'd shown up at our last family barbecue wearing a watch that cost more than I made in a month, talking about his new apartment downtown, and his plans to disrupt the influencer space. Jesse, who'd always looked at Riley like she was a prize he'd let me win temporarily. I heard the bathroom door open upstairs. Riley's voice drifted down, talking on the phone. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was different, lighter, more animated than she'd sounded in months. My phone buzzed, a text from my work buddy, Luis. Saw your wife's car at the Marriott parking garage today. Everything okay? The Marriott. Downtown, 3 blocks from Jesse's apartment. I typed back, thanks. Yeah, all good. But nothing was good. Nothing had been good for months, maybe longer. I'd been so busy working, so focused on providing and fixing and being the reliable husband, that I'd missed the signs. Or maybe I'd seen them and chosen to ignore them. Riley came downstairs wearing a black dress I'd never seen before. It was short, expensive looking. The kind of thing she used to say was too much for a small town. Her makeup was heavier than usual, her lips a deep red that made her look like someone else entirely. You look nice, I said. Thanks. She grabbed her purse from the counter, checked her phone again. I'll probably be late. Don't wait up. Riley, she stopped, hand on the door handle. Yeah? I love you. The pause lasted 3 seconds too long. I love you too, Danny. The door closed behind her, and I was alone with the truth. I sat on the couch and opened my laptop. Took me 45 minutes to find what I was looking for. Jesse's Instagram account was set to public, a mistake that would cost him later. The photos went back 6 months, a timeline of his journey of self-discovery and building authentic connections. But it was the comments that told the real story. Riley's username appeared with suspicious frequency, always with heart emojis and inside jokes, the kind of digital flirting that lived in the gray area between friendship and something else. I screenshotted everything. Then I opened a new browser window and started researching private investigators, not because I needed proof, I already had enough of that, but because I needed to understand the rules of the game I was about to play. The first PI's website had a quote from Sun Tzu, "All warfare is based on deception." I'd been deceived long enough. My phone rang. Luis again. Hey man, he said. You sure you're okay? You sounded weird in that text. I'm fine, just thinking. About what? I looked around the living room. The coffee table Riley and I had picked out together. The bookshelf I'd built her for her birthday. The framed photo of our wedding day. Both of us grinning like we'd won the lottery. About change, I said. Change is good, Hermano. Sometimes we need to shake things up. Yeah, I said. Sometimes we do. I hung up and went back to my laptop. The PI's fee schedule was reasonable. $75 an hour, plus expenses. I could afford it for a few weeks, maybe longer if I canceled the Costa Rica vacation. But as I stared at the contact form, I realized I didn't need a private investigator. I needed something else entirely. I needed to become someone else entirely. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. Riley had come home at 2 a.m., slipping into bed with the careful movements of someone trying not to wake a sleeping spouse. She'd smelled like expensive cologne and guilt. Now she was at the studio, teaching her Thursday morning class, pretending to be the woman I'd married. I had 4 hours to start my education. I drove to the public library and spent the morning reading about surveillance techniques, social engineering, and what the internet called strategic intelligence gathering. The terminology was clinical, but the concepts were simple enough. People left digital footprints everywhere. They made mistakes. They got comfortable. Riley had gotten very comfortable. By lunch, I had a plan. Not a revenge fantasy, something more practical. A systematic approach to gathering information, understanding the scope of the betrayal, and determining my options. I started with Jesse's social media presence. His Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and LinkedIn accounts painted a picture of someone who'd never learned to be careful with his personal information. He posted his location constantly, tagged friends and business associates, shared photos of his apartment, his car, his favorite restaurants. More importantly, he shared photos of Riley, not obviously, nothing that would be immediately recognizable as evidence of an affair. But I knew Riley's jewelry, her clothes, her habits. The woman in the background of Jesse's casual lunch post from 2 weeks ago was wearing Riley's grandmother's necklace. The hand reaching for a wine glass in his Cheers to Thursday story had Riley's distinctive ring, a gift from her mother. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. I screenshotted everything, organized it by date, and saved it to a folder labeled Research. Then I created a timeline. The earliest evidence of their connection went back 8 months. The earliest evidence of them being alone together went back 6 months. The earliest evidence of them being intimate went back 3 months. 3 months ago, Riley had started working late more often. 3 months ago, she'd begun criticizing my appearance, my job, my lack of ambition. 3 months ago, she'd stopped initiating physical contact. The timeline told a story of deliberate emotional withdrawal, of someone building an exit strategy while maintaining the appearance of a marriage. I was still at the library when my phone buzzed. A text from Riley. Working late again tonight, client meeting about the new location. I opened Jesse's Instagram. His latest story, posted 30 minutes ago, showed him at a downtown restaurant with the caption, "Business dinner with my favorite entrepreneur." The lie was so casual, so effortless, that it might have been impressive if it weren't destroying my life. I closed the laptop and drove home. The house felt different now, not like a home, but like a stage set for a play I'd been unwittingly performing in for months. I walked through the rooms, seeing everything with new eyes. The bedroom where Riley had been planning her exit, the kitchen where she'd been lying to my face, the living room where I'd been sitting like a fool, worried about mortgage payments and vacation funds while my wife auditioned for a new life. That evening, I did something I'd never done before. I drove to the restaurant where Jesse had posted his story. I didn't go inside. I just sat in my truck in the parking lot, watching the entrance. At 8:47 p.m., they came out together. Riley wore the same black dress from the night before, but she changed her hair, shorter, more sophisticated. Jesse had his hand on her back, guiding her toward a silver BMW I'd never seen before. They didn't kiss goodbye. They didn't need to. The intimacy was in the way they moved together. The way Riley leaned into him when he whispered something in her ear. The way she laughed. A sound I hadn't heard in months. I followed them to Jesse's apartment building. Riley's car was already in the parking garage, which meant this was planned. Coordinated. They'd driven separately to maintain the illusion of a business meeting. I sat in the darkness for an hour, watching the light in Jesse's window. When it finally went out, I drove home and sat in my own driveway, staring at the house I'd bought for a woman who was sleeping in another man's bed. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to confront them. I wasn't going to hire a lawyer or file for divorce, or make any of the moves that a betrayed husband was supposed to make. I was going to do something else entirely. I was going to make them regret ever meeting each other. The next morning, I started my new life. First, I went to the bank. Riley and I had separate checking accounts, but a shared savings account for major expenses. I transferred half the money, $23,000, to my personal account. Technically, it was my right as a joint account holder. Legally, it was completely above board. Then I went to a storage facility on the outskirts of town and rented a unit under my name. Cash payment, no questions asked. I spent the afternoon moving things I didn't want Riley to find: my laptop, important documents, and the growing collection of evidence I'd gathered. By evening, I had a secure base of operations. Phase 2 began the next week. I started by studying Jesse's business. His consulting company was built on his personal brand, a carefully curated image of success, authenticity, and entrepreneurial wisdom. He had 15,000 followers on Instagram, a modest but engaged audience that he'd been building for 2 years. His weakness was his ego. Every post was a variation on the same theme. Jesse as the self-made man, Jesse as the mentor, Jesse as the guy who'd figured out the secret to success. He loved engagement, loved the comments and shares and validation that came with social media fame. I created a fake account, a young entrepreneur named Travis, who was inspired by Jesse's journey. Travis started commenting on Jesse's posts, asking thoughtful questions, sharing his own struggles with starting a business. Jesse ate it up, even started following Travis back. Within a week, Travis was part of Jesse's inner circle of online admirers. Within 2 weeks, Jesse was sharing more personal details: his challenges, his insecurities, his plans for the future, including his plan to make some major life changes in the coming months. I documented everything. Meanwhile, I was making changes of my own. I'd started going to the gym, not the expensive place where Riley did yoga, but a no-frills weightlifting gym where serious people went to work in silence. I'd started reading business books, psychology, biographies of men who'd overcome adversity and built something meaningful. I'd also started tracking Riley's movements more systematically. Not following her, that would have been too obvious, but paying attention to patterns. She claimed to be working late 3 nights a week, but the studio closed at 9 p.m. She claimed to be attending yoga workshops on weekends, but I'd started checking the websites of the places she mentioned. Half the workshops didn't exist. The lying had become so routine that she wasn't even trying to make it believable anymore. 3 weeks into my new routine, I got my first real break. I was at the gym when I overheard 2 guys talking about some influencer who'd been making waves locally. One of them mentioned Jesse's name, said he'd heard Jesse was involved in some kind of drama with his family. I waited until they were done with their conversation, then introduced myself. The guy who'd mentioned Jesse was named Tony, and he worked for a local marketing agency. He knew Jesse professionally. They'd worked together on a few campaigns. He's talented, Tony said, but he's got a reputation for being complicated, especially with women. What do you mean? Let's just say he's not great at keeping his personal life separate from his professional life. There were some issues with his last girlfriend. She worked for one of his clients, and when things went bad, it got messy. I filed that information away and kept working out, but Tony wasn't done. Actually, he said, I heard he's been seeing someone new, someone married. It's causing problems with his family. I kept my expression neutral. Problems? Yeah. Apparently it's his cousin's wife or something. Real soap opera stuff. His cousin doesn't know yet, but word is getting around. These things always come out eventually. I thanked Tony for the conversation and left the gym. In the parking lot, I sat in my truck and processed what I'd learned. Riley and Jesse weren't as careful as they thought. People were already talking. That gave me an idea. I spent the weekend researching Jesse's ex-girlfriend. Her name was Maya Carlisle, and she was exactly what I'd expected. Smart, attractive, successful. She owned a small marketing firm and had a reputation for being tough, but fair in business. More importantly, she had no love lost for Jesse. I found her company's website and spent an hour reading her blog posts. She wrote about entrepreneurship, about overcoming setbacks, about the importance of authenticity in business. Her writing was sharp, intelligent, and occasionally bitter, especially when she talked about people who use personal relationships to advance their careers. On Monday, I called her office and made an appointment. What can I do for you, Mr. Wexler? Maya asked when I arrived at her office. She was smaller than I'd expected, but her presence filled the room. She had short, dark hair and intelligent eyes that seemed to see through whatever facade I thought I was presenting. I think we have a mutual problem, I said. And what would that be? Jesse Wexler. Her expression didn't change, but I saw something flicker behind her eyes. I'm not sure I follow. He's been seeing my wife, I said, for about 6 months now. I think you know what that's like. Maya leaned back in her chair. Why are you telling me this? Because I think you understand him better than anyone, and because I think you might be interested in helping me do something about it. What kind of something? I pulled out a folder. Copies of the evidence I'd gathered, printed and organized. I'm not looking for revenge. I'm looking for justice. Maya opened the folder and studied the contents. Screenshots of social media posts, a timeline of lies, receipts from restaurants and hotels. It was comprehensive, undeniable, and devastating. This is good work, she said finally. Very thorough. I'm a thorough person. What do you want from me? Information, insight, maybe some professional advice. About what? About how to destroy someone's reputation without breaking any laws. Maya closed the folder and looked at me for a long moment. Jesse hurt me, she said. He used me to get access to my clients, then dumped me when he'd gotten what he needed. But I moved on. I built something better. I'm planning to build something better, too. What does that look like? I told her about my plan. Not the details, but the outline. The systematic dismantling of Jesse's professional reputation, the exposure of his pattern of using women for personal gain, the careful orchestration of his public downfall. And your wife? She made her choice. She'll have to live with the consequences. Maya was quiet for a long time. Then she smiled, the first genuine expression I'd seen from her. I can't be directly involved, she said. But I might be able to provide some background information, off the record, of course. Jesse's business model is built on trust. His clients pay him to manage their online presence, to build their personal brands. If that trust were to be undermined, his business would collapse. Exactly. And Jesse, without his business, is just a guy with expensive taste and no way to pay for it. I left Maya's office with a new understanding of my target. Jesse wasn't just a man who'd stolen my wife. He was a man who'd built his entire identity on a foundation of lies and manipulation. He'd done it before, and he'd do it again, unless someone stopped him. That evening, I implemented phase 3 of my plan. I started with Jesse's biggest client, a local restaurant chain that had hired him to manage their social media presence. Using my Travis persona, I began documenting Jesse's work for them. His posts were lazy, recycled content that he'd used for other clients. His engagement numbers were inflated with fake accounts. His strategy was non-existent. I compiled everything into a professional-looking report and sent it anonymously to the restaurant chain's owner. I didn't make any accusations. I just presented the facts and let them draw their own conclusions. The response was immediate. Within 3 days, Jesse's posts for the restaurant chain had disappeared. Within a week, he'd posted a vague message about moving in a new direction and focusing on his core clients. He'd lost his biggest source of income. I was just getting started. Over the next 2 weeks, I repeated the process with 3 more of Jesse's clients. Each time, I simply presented evidence of his substandard work and let the clients make their own decisions. Each time, the results were the same. Jesse lost the contract. By the end of the month, his income had dropped by 60%. Riley noticed the change before Jesse did. She started mentioning his stress and his busy schedule and his need to refocus his business. She was still lying about where she was going and what she was doing, but the lies were getting more elaborate, more desperate. I pretended not to notice. Meanwhile, I was making changes of my own. I'd lost 15 pounds at the gym and bought new clothes. Not expensive, but better fitting, more modern. I'd started reading business books and taking online courses in digital marketing. I'd even started my own Instagram account, posting pictures of my metalworking projects and my fitness journey. Nothing flashy, nothing that would attract attention. Just a quiet demonstration that I was capable of growth and change. Riley didn't notice. She was too busy managing her double life to pay attention to her husband's transformation. That was her second mistake. Her first had been underestimating me. The confrontation came on a Thursday night in October. I was in the garage working on a custom metalwork project when I heard Riley's car in the driveway. She came through the door with that particular brand of false cheerfulness that meant she was about to tell me another lie. "Hey, baby," she said, kissing my cheek. "How was your day?" "Good. How was yours?" "Busy? Martha and I are planning this new workshop series. It's going to be amazing." I set down my tools and looked at her. "What kind of workshop?" "Partner yoga for couples. Building trust and communication through movement." The irony was so thick it was almost funny. "Sounds interesting. We're thinking about launching it next month. There's a lot of preparation involved." "I'm sure there is." Riley studied my face, looking for signs of suspicion. She didn't find any because I wasn't suspicious anymore. I was certain. "I might need to work late a few more nights this week," she said, getting everything organized. "That's fine. I've got plenty to keep me busy." She nodded and headed upstairs. I waited until I heard the shower running, then pulled out my phone and checked Jesse's Instagram. His latest post was from an hour ago, a photo of a whiskey glass with the caption, "Sometimes you need to unwind after a long day." The background was unmistakably the bar at the Marriott Hotel. I put my phone away and went back to work. The piece I was making was a sculpture of sorts, twisted metal that looked chaotic from one angle, but revealed a clear pattern when viewed from another. I'd been working on it for weeks, and it was almost finished, like my plan. The next morning, I made a decision that would accelerate everything. I called in sick to work again, but this time I had a specific purpose. I drove to the Marriott and parked where I could see the entrance. Then I waited. At 11:30 a.m., Riley's car pulled into the parking garage. At 11:45 a.m., Jesse's BMW followed. They were getting careless, or maybe they were just getting desperate. I waited another 15 minutes, then went inside. The hotel bar was nearly empty. Just a few business travelers and a couple of tourists. I ordered a coffee and sat at a table with a clear view of the elevator. If Riley and Jesse came down, I'd see them. They didn't come down. They were in Jesse's room, or maybe a room he'd rented for the occasion. Either way, they were taking risks they couldn't afford. I finished my coffee and left, but not before stopping at the front desk. "Excuse me," I said to the clerk. "My wife left her phone in the bar yesterday." "Riley Wexler?" "She said she might have left it when she was here for a business meeting." The clerk checked his computer. "I don't show any meetings scheduled for yesterday, sir." "Are you sure she was here?" "Maybe it was today? She's been meeting with a client about event planning." "We don't have any events scheduled today either, but I can check with the restaurant if you'd like." "That's okay," I said. "I'll ask her about it." I walked away with confirmation of what I already knew. Riley and Jesse weren't meeting here for business. They were meeting here because it was convenient, anonymous, and safe, or so they thought. That afternoon, I implemented the next phase of my plan. I'd been building relationships with people in Jesse's professional circle, not as Danny Wexler, but as Travis, the aspiring entrepreneur who'd been following Jesse's career. Travis had become a trusted voice in the comments sections of Jesse's posts, and Jesse had started responding to him more personally. Now it was time to use that relationship. I sent Jesse a direct message as Travis. Hey man, I heard through the grapevine that you're dealing with some family drama. If you need someone to talk to who's not involved, I'm here. Jesse responded within an hour. Thanks, Travis. Yeah, it's complicated. Family stuff always is. Want to grab coffee sometime? I'm in town next week. Actually, that sounds good. I could use a neutral perspective on some things. We made plans to meet at a coffee shop downtown. I had 5 days to prepare for the performance of my life. I spent those 5 days studying Jesse's mannerisms, his speech patterns, his psychological triggers. I watched videos of him giving presentations, read interviews he'd given to local media, analyzed his social media posts for insights into his personality. Jesse was insecure beneath the confidence. He needed validation, especially from younger men who looked up to him. He was also prone to oversharing when he felt safe, and he had a tendency to justify his actions by portraying himself as the sufferer of circumstances. All of that would be useful. On the day of our meeting, I arrived early and chose a table in the back corner of the coffee shop. I was wearing clothes that would make me look younger, more eager, the kind of ambitious young man that Jesse would want to mentor. Jesse arrived 10 minutes late, looking stressed and disheveled. He'd lost weight and his usually perfect hair was slightly unkempt. The pressure was getting to him. Travis, he said, shaking my hand. Thanks for meeting me, man. I really needed this. No problem. You sounded like you were going through something. Jesse ordered a complicated coffee drink and sat down across from me. For the first few minutes, we talked about business, his clients, his strategies, the challenges of building a personal brand. But gradually, I steered the conversation toward more personal topics. So what's this family drama you mentioned? I asked. Jesse sighed. It's complicated. I'm seeing someone and it's causing problems with my family. Problems how? She's married to my cousin. I let my expression show concern without judgment. Wow, that is complicated. The thing is, she's not happy. She hasn't been happy for years. Her husband is a good guy, but he's not right for her. He doesn't understand her, doesn't appreciate what she needs. And you do? I think so. We connect on a deeper level, you know? She's creative, ambitious, she has dreams. But she's stuck in this small-town life with a guy who just wants to come home from work and watch TV. I nodded sympathetically. That sounds frustrating. It is. And the worst part is, I think she's ready to leave him, but she's scared. She's been with him for so long, she doesn't know how to be on her own. What are you going to do? I don't know. I love her, but I can't keep sneaking around forever. It's not fair to anyone. Including your cousin? Jesse's face darkened. Danny's a good guy, but he's not the right guy for her. He's been holding her back for years. Maybe this is the push he needs to find someone better suited for him. The casual cruelty of it was breathtaking. Jesse had convinced himself that destroying my marriage was actually a favor to me. Have you talked to her about it? I asked. We've talked about everything. She knows how I feel. She knows I want to be with her. But she's scared of hurting people. And you're not? Of course I am. But sometimes you have to hurt people to help them in the long run. I spent another hour listening to Jesse justify his betrayal, painting himself as the romantic hero and me as the obstacle to true love. By the time we parted ways, I had everything I needed. That evening, I began the final phase of my plan. I started by creating a new social media account, not fake this time, but anonymous. I called it Truth Teller and began posting carefully crafted content about infidelity, betrayal, and the psychology of cheating. The posts were general, educational, and seemingly unrelated to any specific situation, but they were also strategically designed to be shared by people who'd been betrayed, people who'd seen friends betrayed, people who had strong opinions about infidelity. Within a week, the account had gained 500 followers. Within 2 weeks, it had gained 2,000. I was building an audience. Meanwhile, I was also building evidence. I'd started carrying a small camera with me everywhere, documenting Riley and Jesse's movements without their knowledge. I had photos of them entering and leaving hotels, restaurants, and Jesse's apartment. I had screenshots of their increasingly careless social media interactions. I had receipts from places they'd been together. Most importantly, I had recorded conversations. I'd installed a voice recorder app on my phone and started recording every conversation I had with Riley. It was legal. Colorado was a one-party consent state, meaning I could record any conversation I was a participant in without the other person's knowledge. The recordings told a story of systematic deception, Riley lying about where she'd been, what she'd done, who she'd been with. Riley gaslighting me when I asked innocent questions. Riley building a wall of lies between us while pretending to be the devoted wife. The evidence was overwhelming, but I wasn't ready to use it yet. I was waiting for the right moment. It came on a Saturday in early November. Riley had told me she was going to a yoga retreat in Boulder, a weekend-long workshop that would help her reconnect with her practice. She'd shown me the website, given me the phone number of the retreat center, even packed a bag with yoga clothes and meditation supplies. But Jessie had posted a photo from Vail with the caption, "Weekend getaway with my favorite person." The photo showed a ski lodge, expensive wine, and a woman's hand holding a glass, a hand wearing Riley's distinctive bracelet. They were spending the weekend together at a ski resort while she told me she was at a yoga retreat. I'd had enough. I drove to Vail and found the ski lodge from Jessie's photo. It was an upscale resort, the kind of place that catered to wealthy tourists and pretentious locals. I parked in the visitor lot and walked through the lobby, noting the expensive decor and the staff who looked like they'd been hired from a modeling agency. I didn't see Riley or Jessie, but I didn't need to. I knew they were there. I found the hotel restaurant and ordered lunch, sitting at a table with a view of the elevator. If they came down, I'd see them. If they didn't, I'd wait. At 2:30 p.m., they appeared. Riley was wearing a designer ski outfit I'd never seen before, something that cost more than I made in a week. Jessie was dressed like a walking advertisement for expensive outdoor gear. They looked like a couple from a lifestyle magazine, all white teeth and carefully tousled hair. They sat at a table across the restaurant, close enough for me to hear their conversation, but far enough away that they wouldn't notice me unless they were looking for me. Which they weren't. They were too focused on each other. "This is perfect," Riley said, reaching across the table to touch Jessie's hand. "I wish we could do this more often." "Soon," Jessie said. "Once you tell Danny, we can stop hiding." "I know. I need to find the right time." "There's never going to be a right time, Riley. You just have to do it." "I know. It's just, he's been so different lately. More confident, more focused. It's like he's becoming someone else," Jessie laughed. "Maybe he's finally growing up." "Maybe, or maybe he suspects something." "Does it matter? You're going to leave him anyway." Riley was quiet for a moment. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm making the right choice." "What do you mean?" "I mean, Danny's a good man. He loves me. He's worked so hard to give me everything I wanted." "But you're not happy." "No, I'm not. But I wonder if that's his fault or mine." Jessie leaned forward. "Riley, you can't stay in a marriage just because someone's a good person. You have to be with someone who makes you feel alive." "And you do that, don't I?" Riley smiled. The same smile she'd given me on our wedding day. "Yes, you do." I finished my lunch and left the restaurant, but not before taking a photo of them together. The image was clear, undeniable, and devastating. I drove home and sat in my garage, staring at the photo on my phone. Riley looked happier than I'd seen her in years. Jessie looked like a man who'd won the lottery. That night, I made the decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to confront them quietly. I wasn't going to file for divorce and disappear. I was going to make them face the consequences of their choices in the most public, humiliating way possible. It was time to go to war. I spent Sunday preparing. I organized all my evidence into a comprehensive timeline. Photos, screenshots, recordings, receipts. I created a presentation that told the story of their affair from beginning to end, with dates, locations, and proof of their lies. Then I made copies. Physical copies, digital copies, backup copies stored in 3 different locations. I wasn't going to risk losing anything to technical failures or accidents. On Monday morning, I called my boss and quit my job. "You sure about this, Danny?" he asked. "You've been here 15 years. You've got seniority, benefits, pension contributions." "I'm sure," I said. "I'm starting something new." "What kind of something?" "I'm not sure yet. But I know it's going to be better than this." I cleaned out my locker and said goodbye to the guys I'd worked with for over a decade. Luis pulled me aside as I was leaving. "This is about your wife, isn't it?" he said. "What makes you say that?" "Because I've been watching you for the past few months. You've been different, focused, like you're planning something." I looked at my friend, a man I'd trusted with my problems for years, who tried to warn me about what was happening. "Yeah," I said. "It's about my wife." What are you going to do? I'm going to give her exactly what she deserves. Luis nodded. If you need anything, you call me. Anything. I left the scrapyard and drove to the bank. I withdrew $50,000 from our joint savings account, my half, plus a little extra for expenses. Riley would discover the withdrawal when she checked the account, but by then it would be too late. Then I drove to Maya's office. I need a favor, I said when she let me in. What kind of favor? I need you to help me destroy Jesse's reputation. Professionally, socially, completely. Maya leaned back in her chair. That's a big favor. It's a big situation. I showed her the evidence I'd gathered, the photos from Vale, the recordings of Riley's lies, the documentation of their relationship. Maya studied everything with the careful attention of someone who understood the stakes. This is enough to ruin them both, she said finally. I know, but I want to do it right. I want to make sure they can't recover from this. What do you have in mind? I told her about my plan. It was elaborate, multi-layered, and designed to maximize the damage to both Jesse's professional reputation and his personal relationships. You want to destroy his business, his family relationships, and his social standing, Maya said. All at once. Yes. And you want to do it in a way that makes it look like natural consequences rather than deliberate sabotage. Exactly. Maya was quiet for a long time. I can't be directly involved, she said finally. But I can provide advice, and I can make sure certain people see certain information at the right time. That's all I need. When do you want to start? Tonight, Maya smiled. I like your style, Danny. Jesse hurt both of us, but you're the one who's going to make him pay for it. That evening, I began the systematic destruction of Jesse Wexler's life. Phase 1 was professional sabotage. I'd already cost Jesse most of his clients, but he still had a few contracts that were keeping him afloat. I started by reaching out to those clients, not as Danny Wexler, but as concerned members of the business community who'd heard rumors about Jesse's ethics. I didn't make any direct accusations. I simply asked questions. Had they noticed any irregularities in Jesse's work? Had they heard anything about his personal life that might affect his professional judgment? Were they comfortable with their brand being associated with someone who had a reputation for complications? The questions were enough. Within a week, Jesse had lost his remaining clients. Phase 2 was social destruction. I started by sharing carefully edited versions of Jesse's social media posts with people in his professional network. Posts that showed him drinking during business hours, bragging about his expensive lifestyle, making inappropriate comments about women. I also began sharing information about his pattern of dating clients and using personal relationships for professional gain. I had Maya's testimony, plus evidence from other women Jesse had dated and discarded. The story that emerged was of a man who'd built his career on manipulation and betrayal. Phase 3 was family destruction. This was the most delicate part, because it involved people who were innocent sufferers of Jesse's choices. I started by reaching out to Jesse's parents, his siblings, his extended family. I didn't tell them about the affair directly. I let them discover it for themselves. I sent anonymous messages with links to Jesse's social media posts, highlighting the ones that featured Riley. I sent photos of them together at restaurants and hotels, with timestamps that corresponded to family events Jesse had missed. The message was clear. Jesse had been lying to his family for months, prioritizing his affair over his relationships with the people who loved him. The response was immediate and devastating. Jesse's mother called him, demanding an explanation. His father stopped returning his calls. His siblings began posting passive-aggressive comments on his social media, questioning his priorities and his values. Within 2 weeks, Jesse was effectively estranged from his family. But I wasn't done. Phase 4 was personal destruction. This was where I got creative. I started by creating a fake social media account for a woman named Sarah, who claimed to be Jesse's ex-girlfriend from college. Sarah began posting on Jesse's accounts, sharing memories of their relationship that painted Jesse as emotionally abusive and manipulative. Sarah's posts were carefully crafted to sound authentic, filled with specific details about Jesse's behavior, his insecurities, his treatment of women. She knew things about Jesse that only someone who'd been intimate with him would know. The posts gained traction quickly. Other women began sharing their own stories about Jesse, some real, some fabricated, all damaging to his reputation. Within a month, Jesse had become a local cautionary tale about the dangers of dating narcissistic men. Meanwhile, Riley was beginning to realize that something was wrong. Jesse's income had disappeared. His family had turned against him. His social circle was shrinking daily. The man she'd left me for was becoming a pariah, and she was guilty by association. She started asking questions. Why weren't his clients calling anymore? Why had his parents stopped visiting? Why were people treating them differently when they went out together? Jesse tried to explain it away as jealousy, professional politics, family drama. But Riley was smart enough to recognize a pattern. She was also smart enough to realize that her own reputation was at risk. Riley began distancing herself from Jesse, gradually at first, then more obviously. She stopped posting comments on his social media. She stopped appearing in his photos. She started making excuses to avoid being seen with him in public. But it was too late. Their relationship had been documented, analyzed, and shared throughout their social and professional networks. Riley's reputation was already damaged beyond repair. That's when she made her first mistake. She came home one evening looking stressed and exhausted. I was in the kitchen cooking dinner, something I'd started doing more often, part of my new routine of self-improvement. "We need to talk," she said. "About what?" "About us, about our marriage, about things." I turned off the stove and faced her. "What kind of things?" "I think we've been growing apart. I think maybe we need to consider other options." "What kind of other options?" "Maybe we should take a break, some time apart, to figure out what we really want." I studied her face. She looked guilty, nervous, desperate. "Is there someone else, Riley?" The question hung in the air between us. Riley's face went through a series of expressions: surprise, fear, calculation, resignation. "I don't know how to answer that," she said finally. "It's a simple question, yes or no." "It's not that simple, Danny. Things have been complicated lately." "Complicated how?" I've been confused about what I want, about what I need." "And you think taking a break will help you figure that out?" "Maybe. I don't know. I just know that I'm not happy, and I don't think you are either." I was quiet for a long moment. "You're right," I said finally. "I'm not happy, but I don't think a break is going to fix what's wrong." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I think we need to be honest with each other about everything." Riley's face went pale. "What do you want me to say?" "I want you to tell me about Jesse." The silence that followed was deafening. Riley stared at me like I'd just revealed that I could read her mind. "What about Jesse?" she said finally. "I want you to tell me about your relationship with him. I want you to tell me about the hotels, the restaurants, the weekend getaways. I want you to tell me about the lies you've been telling me for the past 6 months." Riley's face crumpled. "Danny, I want you to tell me about how you've been planning to leave me for him, about how you've been building a new life behind my back while pretending to be my wife." How did I know? Because I'm not stupid, Riley. I'm not the clueless husband you thought you married. I'm a man who pays attention, who asks questions, who verifies answers. I pulled out my phone and showed her the photo from Vale. "I want you to tell me about this." Riley stared at the photo, her face going through a range of emotions. "You followed me?" "I followed my wife to the place she said she was going. Imagine my surprise when she wasn't there." "Danny, I can explain." "No, you can't. There's no explanation that makes this okay. There's no justification for what you've done." Riley started crying. "I never meant for this to happen. I never meant to hurt you. But you did hurt me. Every lie, every secret meeting, every time you came home smelling like another man. You hurt me." "I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix this, Riley. Sorry doesn't undo 6 months of betrayal." "What do you want from me?" "I want you to leave." "What?" "I want you to pack your things and leave tonight. Go to Jesse's place, go to your sister's place, go wherever you want. But I want you out of my house." "Danny, please. Can't we talk about this? Can't we try to work things out?" "Work things out? Riley, you've been living a double life for half a year. You've been lying to me every single day. You've been planning to leave me for another man. What exactly do you think we're going to work out?" "I don't know. I love you, Danny. I know I've made mistakes, but I love you." "No, you don't. You love the security I provide. You love the house, the life, the safety net. But you don't love me. If you loved me, you wouldn't have been screwing my cousin for 6 months." The crude language hit her like a slap. Riley recoiled, her face going white. "That's not fair," she whispered. "Fair? You want to talk about fair? Let me tell you what's fair. Fair is you facing the consequences of your choices. Fair is you living with the results of your actions. Fair is you discovering that actions have consequences. What does that mean? It means that your secret isn't secret anymore. It means that people know what you've been doing. It means that your reputation, your relationships, your future, they're all going to be affected by the choices you've made. Riley stared at me in horror. What did you do? I did what any reasonable person would do when they discovered their spouse was betraying them. I documented it. I gathered evidence. I shared information with people who had a right to know. Who? Who did you tell? Does it matter? The truth has a way of getting out, Riley, especially when it's as dramatic as this. You're going to ruin my life. I'm not going to ruin your life. You already did that. I'm just making sure you can't pretend it didn't happen. Riley stood there for a long moment, tears streaming down her face. Then she turned and walked upstairs. I heard her moving around in the bedroom, opening drawers, packing clothes. An hour later, she came back downstairs with 2 suitcases. I'll come back for the rest of my things later, she said. No, you won't. I'll have everything packed and ready for pickup by the end of the week. You can send someone to collect it. Danny, please, don't do this. Don't throw away 15 years of marriage because of a mistake. This wasn't a mistake, Riley. This was a choice, a series of choices. You chose to betray me. You chose to lie to me. You chose to build a relationship with another man while you were married to me. Those weren't mistakes. They were deliberate decisions. I know. But can't we get past this? Can't we try to rebuild? There's nothing to rebuild. You destroyed it. You destroyed us. And now you have to live with that. Riley stood at the door, looking back at the house we'd shared for 15 years. I never wanted it to end like this. Then you should have made different choices. She left, and I was alone. But I wasn't done. The next morning, I began the final phase of my plan. I'd been building toward this moment for months, the complete and total destruction of Jesse's life and Riley's reputation. But I wanted to do it in a way that would have maximum impact and minimum legal risk. I started by creating a comprehensive website that documented their affair from beginning to end. I called it The Truth About Jesse Wexler and filled it with photos, screenshots, timelines, and recorded conversations. Everything was presented factually, with dates and sources. I didn't editorialize or make accusations. I simply presented the evidence and let readers draw their own conclusions. The website went live on a Tuesday morning. By Tuesday evening, it had been viewed 5,000 times. By Wednesday, it had been shared on social media hundreds of times. By Thursday, it was the talk of the town. Jesse's remaining business contacts began distancing themselves from him. His social media followers started dropping. His reputation, already damaged, was now completely destroyed. But I wasn't finished. I'd been saving the best for last. On Friday evening, I sent a message to Jesse through his social media account. We need to talk. Meet me at the old freight depot at 8 p.m. Come alone. I'd chosen the location carefully, an abandoned train yard on the outskirts of town, far from prying eyes, but not so remote that anyone would get suspicious. It was dramatic, atmospheric, and perfect for what I had planned. Jesse arrived at 8:15, looking nervous and disheveled. He'd lost weight, his clothes were wrinkled, and he had the haunted look of a man whose world was collapsing around him. Danny, he said as he approached, I'm glad you wanted to meet. We need to clear the air about— Shut up, I said. Jesse stopped walking. What? I said shut up. You don't get to talk right now. You don't get to explain or justify or make excuses. You just get to listen. Listen to what? Listen to me tell you exactly what's going to happen to you. Jesse looked around nervously. Danny, I know you're angry, but I'm not angry, Jesse. I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed that my own cousin would betray me like this. I'm disappointed that a man I trusted would steal my wife. I'm disappointed that someone I considered family would lie to my face for 6 months. I never meant for it to happen this way. How did you mean for it to happen? Did you mean to seduce my wife behind my back? Did you mean to convince her to leave me? Did you mean to destroy my marriage? Jesse was quiet for a moment. I love her, Danny. I know that doesn't make it right, but I love her. You love her? You love her so much that you've destroyed her reputation? You love her so much that you've made her a social pariah? You love her so much that you've ruined her life? What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that everyone knows about your affair. I'm talking about the fact that Riley can't show her face in public without people whispering about her. I'm talking about the fact that your love has cost her everything she cared about. Jesse's face went pale. You told people? I didn't have to tell anyone anything. The truth has a way of coming out on its own. What truth? The truth about what kind of man you really are. The truth about how you use women. The truth about how you destroy everything you touch. I pulled out my phone and showed him the website I'd created. Jesse stared at the screen, his face going through a series of expressions: shock, horror, rage. You can't do this, he said. This is maltreatment. This is defamation. This is documentation. Everything on that website is factual, verifiable, and legally obtained. You can't sue me for telling the truth. This will destroy me. Yes, it will. Jesse looked at me with something approaching fear. What do you want from me? I want you to understand what you've done. I want you to face the consequences of your choices. I want you to know that actions have consequences. I'll leave town. I'll go somewhere else, start over. Where? This is the internet age, Jesse. Your reputation follows you wherever you go. Every potential employer, every potential client, every potential girlfriend, they're all going to find this website. They're all going to know what kind of man you are. Jesse was quiet for a long moment. You've thought of everything, haven't you? I've had a lot of time to think. 6 months, to be exact. 6 months of watching my wife lie to me while she was screwing you. 6 months of playing the clueless husband while you and Riley planned your new life together. I never wanted to hurt you, but you did hurt me. You hurt me in ways you can't imagine. You took everything I cared about and destroyed it for your own entertainment. Riley wasn't happy, Danny. She hasn't been happy for years. And you think that justifies what you did? I think it explains it. I stepped closer to Jesse, close enough that he could see the cold rage in my eyes. Let me explain something to you, Jesse. Marriage isn't about happiness. It's about commitment. It's about working through problems together. It's about being honest, even when it's difficult. I know that. No, you don't. You know about taking what you want without caring about the consequences. You know about using people for your own benefit. You know about destroying things that other people have built. Jesse was backing away from me now, intimidated by my proximity and my tone. But you don't know about the work that goes into building a life with someone. You don't know about the sacrifices, the compromises, the daily choice to put someone else's needs before your own. Danny, you don't know about any of that because you've never done it. You've never built anything lasting. You've never created anything meaningful. You've just taken and taken and taken until there was nothing left. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. This is for you. Jesse took the envelope with trembling hands. What is it? It's a bill for the damage you've done to my life, for the therapy I'm going to need, for the legal fees, for the cost of rebuilding my reputation, for the pain and suffering you've caused. Jesse opened the envelope and looked at the papers inside. His face went white. $50,000, he whispered. That's what it's going to cost to fix what you've broken, and you're going to pay it. I don't have $50,000. I know. You don't have any money, you don't have any clients, you don't have any prospects. You don't have anything because I've taken it all away from you. Jesse stared at me in horror. You destroyed my business. I exposed your business practices. I documented your treatment of clients. I shared information about your ethics with people who had a right to know. You ruined my life. I held you accountable for your choices. There's a difference. Jesse crumpled the papers and threw them at my feet. I'm not paying you anything. Yes, you are, because if you don't, I'll make sure that website is just the beginning. I'll make sure that every person you've ever wronged knows where to find you. I'll make sure that your reputation follows you for the rest of your life. You can't do this. I can do whatever I want, Jesse. I have money, I have time, and I have nothing left to lose. You took everything that mattered to me. Now I'm going to take everything that matters to you. Jesse looked around the abandoned train yard as if searching for escape. What do you want from me? I want you to disappear. I want you to leave town and never come back. I want you to stay away from Riley. Stay away from my family. Stay away from my friends. And if I do that, then maybe I'll let you keep what's left of your dignity. Jesse was quiet for a long moment. And Riley? Riley made her choice. She chose you over me. Now she gets to live with the consequences of that choice. She didn't deserve this. She deserved exactly what she got. She deserved to face the truth about what she'd done. She deserved to see how other people react when they find out about her betrayal. Jesse looked at me with something approaching respect. You're not the man I remember. No, I'm not. I'm the man you helped create. I'm the man who learned that being nice doesn't protect you from betrayal. I'm the man who learned that sometimes you have to fight for what's yours. And what's yours? My dignity, my self-respect, my future. I turned to walk away, then stopped and looked back at Jesse. One more thing. What? If you ever contact Riley again, if you ever try to see her or talk to her or even think about her, I'll destroy what's left of your life. I'll make sure you never work again, never date again, never have a moment of peace again. Jesse nodded, his face pale and defeated. Do we understand each other? I asked. We understand each other. I left Jesse standing in the abandoned train yard, broken and alone. It was the last time I ever saw him. The next morning, I began the process of rebuilding my life. I filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and providing the court with documentation of Riley's affair. The process was straightforward and uncontested. Riley's lawyer advised her not to fight it, given the evidence I'd gathered. I kept the house, the savings, and most of our shared assets. Riley got her personal belongings and the debt from her credit cards. Debt I'd only discovered during the divorce proceedings, debt she'd accumulated while buying gifts for Jesse and paying for their expensive dates. I also started a new business, a custom metalworking shop that specialized in artistic sculptures and functional pieces. I used the money I'd taken from our savings account to buy equipment and rent a workspace. Within 6 months, I had more orders than I could handle. Maya helped me with the business side of things, providing marketing advice and connecting me with potential clients. Our professional relationship gradually became personal, and within a year, we were dating. Maya was everything Riley wasn't: honest, direct, supportive of my goals. She understood betrayal, understood recovery, understood the work that went into building something meaningful. Riley, meanwhile, had moved in with her sister and was working as a server at a chain restaurant. Jesse had left town just as I demanded. Their relationship had ended as dramatically as it had begun, with recriminations and accusations and mutual destruction. I heard about their breakup through mutual friends, who reported that Riley had blamed Jesse for ruining her life, while Jesse had blamed Riley for being too needy and too dramatic. Neither of them had taken responsibility for their choices. Neither of them had learned anything. But I had learned something. I'd learned that you can't control other people's choices, but you can control your response to those choices. I'd learned that revenge isn't about anger, it's about justice. I'd learned that sometimes the best way to rebuild your life is to first tear down the lies that were destroying it. 2 years after Riley left, I married Maya in a small ceremony attended by friends and family. Riley wasn't invited, of course. Neither was Jesse. But I heard they both found out about the wedding through social media. I heard they both realized what they'd lost when they threw away everything for a relationship that was built on lies and betrayal. I heard they both regretted their choices. But regret doesn't undo the past. Regret doesn't restore what's been destroyed. Regret doesn't give you back the life you chose to throw away. Riley and Jesse had made their choices, and they'd gotten exactly what they deserved. I'd made my choices too, and I'd gotten exactly what I'd worked for: a new life, a better life, a life built on truth instead of lies, a life where I was no longer the sufferer, but the victor.